All right, you know what I'm saying? So, boom! I wanted to talk some about Triple H. I wanted to talk some about just WWE and their whole roster layout as a whole. This isn't going to be a Triple H video, so to speak, but it's going to have a lot to do with Triple H just because of the fact that the company is where it is because of the guy. So, I mean, of course, he's going to have a place in this video because this video is about the sad fucking state of WWE's main event scene, if you can even call it that these days. I mean, I spoke a little bit yesterday in my tag team video. Go check it out. I spoke a little bit about how tag teams these days suffer from the same problem that you find a lot of wrestling as a whole seems to suffer from: a lack of creativity, a lack of gimmicks, a lack of storylines. And that, almost greater than anything has lowered the standard as we see it in the wrestling business, right? Nowadays, we find that even the main event scene cannot hold our attention. And why is that? The main event used to be the just the biggest possible thing that you could dream of, right? It was Austin, it was Rock, it was Hogan, it was Savage, it was Cena, it was Orton, and now we have what? Punk and Seth Rollins, and Roman Reigns is the only modern guy who actually has the gravitas and the aura of a main eventer. And even at that, they still treat him like a fucking scrub. So Roman Reigns is disqualified for that fucking reason. He's disqualified because, I don't know, he kicked Triple H's dog or fucked his wife or did something to the guy. Obviously. I mean, look where he is and look where he was a year or two ago. This isn't fucking about Roman Reigns. Again, he has a place in this video because we're lacking greatly as far as the depth at the top of the card, man. We have coming up at the next pay-per-view, Drew versus Cody for the WWE title. I like Drew McIntyre. I would like to think that in a perfect world, Drew might even be the champion right now, right? He would make a much more entertaining champion than Cody. At least he looks the part. And this isn't meant to crap on Cody either, but you take a guy, and as a matter of fact, we can lump Drew McIntyre and Cody into the same category here. You take a couple guys who simply couldn't make it before when there was just more star power at the top. You have a couple guys who had to leave the company and find themselves, so to speak, so that they can come back in a higher position. And I don't have anything against that. I don't have anything against people who work their ass off in order to come back, bigger and better. Drew, he came back bigger and better. Cody, to a lesser extent, came back bigger and better, right? And I feel like now that it's set a precedent rather, to where it's okay for guys to just dick off for the first half of their career because you know what? They can just get fired. They can just leave the company, come back in a more high profile position. But one of the problems that you run into when you elevate these people who were past jabronis is that now you kind of run the risk of diluting your own main event scene with these guys who couldn't make it before, and now all of a sudden they're in these high profile spots. I mean, Drew McIntyre, fucking Cody Rhodes, these guys are contemporaries with John Cena, with Randy Orton, and yet when John Cena and Randy Orton were at their peak, fucking Drew McIntyre and Cody Rhodes were fucking scrubbing floors practically, right? Compared to these two guys. They wouldn't have made it, legitimately, when you have people like Triple H and you have people like fucking Shawn Michaels and Kane and Undertaker and Jeff Hardy and all these, actual superstars that have some weight behind their names. We have Seth Rollins as the World Heavyweight Champion. Seth Rollins is a perfectly fine mid-carder. I personally wouldn't even go as far as to say he would be a good upper mid-carder. Because back in the day, we had upper mid-carders like fucking Jericho, and Jericho's 5 or 10 times better than Seth Rollins ever was. And another problem, too, with why I feel like the main event scene does not feel as important as it used to be, or as it should still be, is that the roster, there's no differentiating between superstars on the roster the same way there was 10 or 15 or 20 years ago. There was a clear upper card. You were a main eventer, you were a mid carder, you were an upper mid carder, which meant that, you might be someone who flirts with the world title scene here and there. like a Kane, like a Jericho, like a Benoit. You could probably name a few others over the course of time. You have the lower mid card, right? So you're gonna have people who are honestly probably never gonna be world champion, but they can be IC champion, right? You're gonna have your undercard, man. You're gonna have your fucking undercard. These are gonna be some of your hardcore guys. These are gonna be some of your fucking Al Snows and your Mavens and fucking people like that. You know what I mean? You're gonna have those level of guys. You're gonna have your tag teams. You're gonna have your women, which I believe that the women should be a special attraction. But all this is to only, I feel like, help kind of bolster the main event scene, because you can have someone as good as, I don't know, you can have someone as good as Y2J. Let's say you can have someone as good as Chris Jericho. You can have someone as good as Kane, right? And even in their day, these guys were not legit main eventers. It took so much more. You had to have a much higher level of just gravitas and importance and just presence. You know what I mean? You can have a guy like Brock Lesnar who was fresh on the scene and he just felt like a fucking big deal right off the bat, man. Right off the bat. You can't, not everyone can be a main eventer, but nowadays it feels like we're in a spot where, Sami Zayn could legitimately be world heavyweight champion and it wouldn't be that much of a shock. It wouldn't be that much of a surprise. Sami fucking Zayn, bro. Sami fucking Zayn. This guy would be on an S.A. Rios level back in the day. This guy would be on a fucking Brian Kendrick level back in the day. If he were lucky to even have a job, man. I mean, come on. What are we even talking about? We have these fucking jabronis, mid-carders at best, masquerading as main eventers, and it's a fucking joke. We're going to get to the point now that your main event of WrestleMania is actually going to be Cody versus like Trick Williams or whatever. It's like, what is happening? What are we talking about here, right? We went from Austin and Rock. We went from Hogan and Savage. We went from fucking Brock and Cena and Triple H to this piss poor level that the WWE has stooped to these days because they just don't have the ability to make stars like they used to, man. It's just not in the cards anymore for this fucking company. We've seen it. People have said over the years that, you know what, one of the reasons WWE doesn't want to make stars is because they don't want them to go to Hollywood and this and that. Look, let me put it to you like this. Roman Reigns, this fucking guy, they keep saying, oh, he's going to go to Hollywood. He's going to be a big deal, this and that. They've been saying this for years now, man. They've been saying this for at least a couple years. Roman Reigns, the best he got was that fucking part in Hobbs and Shaw. Nobody gives a fuck, really, about Roman Reigns outside of wrestling. No one knows who Roman Reigns is outside of wrestling. He's a big deal in the context of wrestling. And that's another thing I want to differentiate for you, motherfuckers out there, is that you have guys who are big in wrestling, and then you have guys who are just big, right? We have people who are big in wrestling. Randy Orton is big in wrestling. Roman Reigns is big in wrestling. Cody, to a lesser extent, is big in wrestling. And then you have people like John Cena who are just a step above. You have people like The Rock who are just a step above. Austin just a step above. I want to say Undertaker. He kind of teeters the line, the line, so to speak, between someone who's more known outside of wrestling and someone who's also a star in wrestling. Because I would say a lot of people know who Undertaker is. I feel like the gimmick is pretty easily recognizable. But nowadays we don't get that same feeling that we used to get from our top guys and our main eventers, and people who they presented to us as a big deal felt like a big deal. They either looked the part, they talked the part, they convinced you to believing that they were exactly who and what they claimed to be, right? Obviously, we know wrestling's fake. We know it's BS, but we still want to have characters. We still want to have, engaging storylines and gimmicks and shit that we can connect with. And I get too that a lot of times with your main eventers, with your main event scene, it's not something that you need to heavily gimmick up too much. Like you can have Austin and Rock in a feud where it doesn't have to be about, your typical mundane mid-card story, like this person stole my bike, or, it's Austin and Rock. The storyline's going to be who's the best between these two. But when you get to that level, you're allowed that kind of leeway to where your name alone can just sell, what we're seeing. Nowadays, you can have Seth and fucking Punk face each other as many times as you want. It's not a bigger deal than the last time. It's not a bigger deal than the first time. Heck, the first time wasn't even a big deal at all. You understand what I'm saying to you? Huh? So, there's hardly any matches anymore, any big blockbuster matches that WWE can put together that would actually get a guy like me excited. There are a few guys that you can actually say have that main event level energy to them. That's why, even though I know a lot of people are upset about Brock Lesnar being back, at least Brock Lesnar, as I've said in the past, is one of the few guys who actually has the ability to make something feel like a main event. The Rock, he has the ability when he shows up to make something feel like a big deal. It feels like a fucking main event. I'm sorry, but when Seth Rollins is out there, I don't get any more energy or enthusiasm than when fucking Gunther's out there or when fucking and Jey Uso. Let's talk a little bit about Jey Uso, another guy who, in a perfect world, not even in a perfect world, in a reasonable world, Jey Uso would never be a world champion. This would never happen. This is when you have people at the top now who are just completely fucked mentally and have no idea about what makes a star. Because you mean to tell me Jey Uso has spent more time as world champion in the past, like, 5 years, or 3 years at least, than Drew McIntyre? You mean to tell me that fucking Sami Zayn is getting more of a push to the world title than even, I don't know, what's fucking AJ Styles doing, right? I know he's in his 40s, but man, there are better options out there, man. There are much better options. Fucking Gunther. Don't even get me started about this guy. I keep telling myself I'm gonna make a Gunther video, and it's coming. It's coming. You just wait, man. It's just coming. But Gunther's not better than his own protege. He's not even better than Ludwig Kaiser. They try to present this guy to us as some fucking Brock Lesnar, Undertaker, just this world beater type of guy who simultaneously gets his ass handed to him by Sami Zayn and Jey Uso. And this is a two-time world heavyweight champion in the modern day. So if you ask me, WWE, all they've done, um, in addition to not making any stars, is, make us believe even more so that the people who they try to present as stars are just not. Because we have eyes, we have ears, we're not dumbasses. A lot of us aren't. At least some of us aren't. Some of us that are still watching. And you know what? Um, I'm not too eager for any match that WWE does from this point forward. I don't care for Cena versus Lesnar. I don't care where the Seth Rollins storyline goes with CM Punk. The only thing I really care for in terms of the world title or the main event scene, so to speak, is potentially my boy LA Knight getting in there some way, somehow. We'll see. Who knows? And then maybe Braun Breaker becoming world champion. But other than those two options, you're pretty much fucked, WWE. And with that, you can go ahead and suck a long one. I'm going to piece the fuck up out of here, and I'll catch you in the next one.